Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Real Estate Matters for 11 years. Hurrah, hurrah. This weekend, this show marks 11 years. So,
happy birthday.
If you're listening, you can't hear it that well, but we do have blowers if you're watching us.
Yeah. They just don't make noise.
No, they don't make obnoxious noises. It's a toddler mom thing.
You would have had to pay extra for that.
Yeah, I didn't at the dollar store.
But we are the voice of real estate in Flagler County in Palm Coast, Florida. In fact, this represents our 11th birthday, as I said. I'm Toby Tobin, publisher of GoToby.com, contributor to the Palm Coast Observer. I'm a Florida licensed realtor with Landmark Group at Compass, and co-host Anna Maria Long is here in the studio with me today. Hello, Anna Maria.
Hi.
And we also have Ken Belshey from Sunbelt Land Management, the developer of Veranda Bay in soon-to-be Flagler Beach. Right, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. That's the intention.
Okay, and
our hope, anyway.
He also is the developer of Veranda Bay, which is our new main sponsor for this show. I've been for about the last 4 weeks, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. And our lead sponsor, Veranda Bay, we'll talk about it in more detail, but it's a private waterfront community of lots and luxury homes on the Intercoastal Waterway in Flagler Beach. Now you're opening another phase, or you just recently opened a new phase?
We are opening a third phase, really, that's being led by production builders, which is Toll Brothers and Dreamfinders.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, good. That's the section out closer to John Anderson? Or?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I drove
on the north side.
Yeah. I drove through your community yesterday. It's really starting to look good. There's several homes in there now.
Thank you. Yes.
And
we're very proud of it.
They're classy homes, for sure. We're also sponsored by the Flagler County Home Builders Association, which is where Anna Maria hangs out, and the Hammock Community Church, where I hang out every Sunday, over on A1A in the Hammock.
Small enough to know you, large enough to serve you.
Thank you. Thank you. You always get that right.
I got you.
I always get it wrong.
I know. I'm just going to get ahead of the game now.
Okay. I'll put that on your list of to-dos every week. So here we're recording on July 3rd, and we've pretty much got the June numbers. There'll be a few straggling numbers that'll come in over the next week, but I think we're pretty confident we know where June finished. We show that as of 2 o'clock this afternoon, 258 homes have sold via the Flagler MLS. These are single-family home sales at a median price of $367,250. And we hear a lot of talk about this being a soft market, and to be sure, there are plenty of signs that it is a soft market. But this isn't one of them, because $367,250 compares to $370 last June, so that's less than $3,000 difference, which is
negligible at best.
Yeah, not a soft market.
Yeah. And 286 homes were sold last year versus 258. So that's last week I was forecasting that we wouldn't come in very close to last year's number, and then somehow this last week a bunch of homes closed. Days on market, 52. And homes under 250,000 or 250 or less, 13 homes were sold. Active days on market in that category of those 13 homes is 15 days on market. So that's a very active segment of the market. 7 of the 13 were cash sales, which indicates, as it usually does, that that's mostly investors, people that are probably buying these homes to fix and flip or to put into a long-term rental program.
Are you starting to track any pre-foreclosures?
I don't track pre-foreclosures. I track foreclosure filings, and I also track foreclosure completions, and that's the sale at the, not literally at the courthouse steps. It used to be, but I track those. And then I also track active foreclosures, the ones that are in the system.
Are we starting to see any of those? or more than the normal
No,
one-offs?
We're a little bit up from a year ago, but not statistically significant.
Very good.
At all. It's good news. But we have an awful lot of equity
Yeah.
in our market.
The
now.
market is structurally different today than it was even a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, for sure. The almost nothing is the same.
Correct.
You know, all of the things that were wrong then don't exist now.
Yes.
I believe that to be true.
I think that's important to note when we're talking about the 250 and lower for listeners.
Yeah, and buyers back then were not end users. They were almost all
Middlemen.
basically the real estate equivalent of day traders.
Yeah.
Well, and foreclosures happen because people borrow money. And over the last decade, or really maybe 15 years, you haven't been able to borrow money if you needed to borrow money.
Yeah.
So
right.
so there's really I won't say there's no opportunity for foreclosures, because I'm sure there will be some, and some people may lose their job and things like that. But the financial stress is just not built into the system. There is none.
Yeah, my dad used to say a banker is someone who will loan you money, but he wants it back when it rains.
Yeah, loan you
his umbrella.
Yeah.
Well, umbrella, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a half right.
Yeah, with interest.
Yes. Homes listed 1,438, which sounds high because it is high relative to a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago. But it's still only 5.6 months of inventory, which is most people consider 6 months inventory as a normal market. Above that is buyer's market, below seller's market. So we really aren't out of phase, unless those numbers, just like the reasons for the recession, are not the same as they were 15 years ago. I mean, maybe our old guidelines are not so good anymore.
Someone, I think it was a builder, that told me 6 or 8 months ago, he said that the market had gone from like super crazy to just a little crazy.
Yeah, everyone's saying they're going back to busy normal.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are. And there's, are there some concerns if you're the person that wants to sell your house and it's been on the market a little longer than you think? Perhaps, but overall for the market, I don't see that.
Well, if you're a Real Estate Matters listener, then you know what the average days on market is, and you know if you're in an abnormal place or not. Now, Toby, on the flip side of those 250 and under, how'd our $1 million plus houses look? This
$1
sales
million
look?
plus, we had 6 closed this last month. Days on market was 108. Which
that's different than we've been looking at.
We've been seeing low days on market, even in the $1 million market. So that's
right.
We'll have to.
But our cash sales on those are
4 out of the 6 were cash.
So that number is staying steady percentage wise.
But 7 of the 13 in the under 250 were cash as well. So we're still seeing cash on each end of the market, but not in the middle market. Right. Pending home sales are 326 homes in the pending file. I don't have building permit numbers other than Palm Coast yet, but Palm Coast issued 122 building permits, which is about, it's what they've been running pretty much on
I did get Bunnell. Bunnell had 0.
Yeah, I did get Bunnell too.
We can say 0.
They had 0. And they only had 3 in Palm Coast, I think.
Oh, for July, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying.
No, for June.
For June.
I think they had 3 or 4. They only had
3 or 4 permits.
Permits issued or applied for.
You said Palm Coast. Did you mean Flagler?
No, I mean in
Bunnell.
Bunnell. No.
They had 0 in Bunnell.
0 in Bunnell.
But in Palm Coast, they only had 3 or 4 issued and only about 3 or 4 applied. But here's a number that's interesting. 174 permits were applied for in Palm Coast. And we talked about this a little last
And
week.
122 issued. Yeah, because they're all gearing up to beat that October 1st deadline. We project. We think.
Yeah.
We think that's the reason.
We're usually right.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about that, visit flaglerhba.com/fair fees.
Could be just because the market's good, too.
Could be. Or it could be to save
that's interesting.
$12,000.
I think
per house.
The big, beautiful bill passed about an hour before we came to the studio today. And I think the reason the market is kind of undefined right now, or hard to put get your arms around the dynamics of the market. I think the main reason it's that way is because there's been a lot of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And the market and Wall Street generally don't like uncertainty. And I think that the big, beautiful bill passing and some of Trump's other successes over the last couple of weeks are removing some uncertainty. So I expect both the housing market and the stock market to do pretty well moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised to be telling a different story in as short a period as a couple of months.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very bullish on the market for a lot of reasons, you know.
Yeah. And the builders that are stocking up on permits through applying early, they're primarily the production, the ones that are in the middle of communities under construction, right, like Taylor Morrison, Miranda Homes, Meritage Homes, Dreamfinders, Starlight, Richmond American, Century Homes, and Holiday Builders. And they're all building like in Colbert Landing, Seminole Palms, Reverie. Reverie is a project that you were involved in early on.
I bought that. Our company bought that property, and we entitled it and did some development work on it and sold it to Dreamfinders.
Mm-hmm. And you still maintain some multifamily
on the north end, south end of that property. We still have some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just is that considered land banking now?
Yes. Yeah, we own quite a few tracts of land around, and we will eventually develop.
So tell us about Veranda Bay. It once was known as the Gardens at Hammock Beach, and it was planned with the golf course by Bobby Ginn. And this project sold only about a dozen lots at its first phase, which was unusual because the way Bobby used to market during the real hot market, everything was oversubscribed when he released a project. I mean, he would have 300 people on the I want a lot list, and he'd release 100 lots.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen with this project. I think there were a dozen lots that were sold. They just sat there. Nothing happened. No infrastructure at all. They eventually voided the plats, and then you arrived on the scene. Yeah. Eventually. It sat for a while.
Yeah. Well, I arrived on the scene actually, in 1999, way before that, with we developed Palm Coast Plantation and Marina del Palma. Correct. Mm-hmm. And I have utmost respect for Mr. Ginn and his team. I think they had a really beautiful plan for that property, and really had they figured things out for that specific time. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for them, they got it ready to go about 15 minutes before the recession kicked in.
Mm-hmm. Their timing. Well, he was shoveling dirt, probably more dirt than almost any other developer in our hemisphere at the time. And and he had projects in all different phases of development.
From the mountains of North Carolina to the Bahamas.
The Bahamas, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even in Vermont, I think he had a project up in New England.
I think you're right. And again, I like Bobby. I think he did a lot for the area and the community, and I think he's a great developer, but the timing was bad. And, in this business...
His Hammock Beach project ended up being a winner.
Wonderful, yeah.
That's a great piece of property.
Yeah, you go there today, and it's beautiful. But this one, unfortunately, suffered from the recession, and so we were able to acquire it from the lender in about 2018.
Speaking of timing... I think it's time for a quick break.
I think so, yeah. There's Marcus waving his sign. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go away.
Hi, this is Ken Belshie at Veranda Bay, inviting you to see over 40 new, never-released home sites. Phase 1 sold out in record time, so don't miss your chance on Phase 2. All home sites have planned water access with resort-style amenities. These are big, estate-sized lots. Schedule your private showing now at verandabay.com.
On the water, beyond belief, Veranda Bay.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is the second half of Real Estate Matters. We have Ken Belshey from Sunbelt Land Management, the developer of Veranda Bay, also of Palm Coast Plantation and Marina del Palma. So he's been on our market for going on 30-some years now.
Yeah, 26.
Mm-hmm.
I got here right after the big fires.
Okay,
So.
yeah. Well, I got here in 2000 myself. And I remember going to your rollout. I was living in Grand Haven at the time that you rolled Plantation Bay out.
Palm Coast Plantation.
Or Palm Coast Plantation. And that was a timing thing, too. That just, it got off to a good beginning and then just kind of stalled for a while.
Well,
as Grand Haven did. I mean, everybody stalled.
It was a great investment for our company because we sold it rather quickly. We sold it out in about 3 years, and then the recession came along, and the build out of it took longer.
It's the build out that
it's the build out that took longer,
yeah.
right? But it's a thriving, beautiful community now, and I still have people that come up to me and recognize me and thank me for that property. I really do. I had one just 2 weeks ago at our marina that sought me out and told me what a great time they've had living there.
And Marina del Palma was part of that original land acquisition, too, wasn't it? And it's the southern end.
113 acres we carved off the end as we thought it was the most valuable property there, and turned out to be.
I remember the conversation at the time was you wanted to keep the number of units down below the DRI threshold.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was a rumor or not, but it was.
Neither confirm or deny.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So tell us more about Veranda Bay. At what stage are you at now?
So we've completed construction of the first 335 lots there, and all of the waterfront and the stuff across the lots across the street from the waterfront have been sold and are under a lot of homes going in there. I think we have about 30 houses under construction or completed, and then the
builders there are.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. It's Holbert Homes, AR Homes, Olson Custom Homes, and ICI. There's 4 participating builders there. And
if I were to come in and buy a lot there or have already bought a lot, I would be restricted to using one of those 4
correct.
builders.
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's a little different model that a lot of developers use, especially the production builders.
Well, production builders typically buy their own buy property and then develop it themselves, or have someone develop it.
They have their own captive mortgage company and closing company, and
all that. And Veranda Bay has a section like that where it's the part we were talking about earlier that is on the north side, right behind where their clubhouse is going to be, which is starting construction next month. And we're so in that section, 124 lots. Toll Brothers will be in half of that, and then Dreamfinders Homes is half of that. So if you go out there today, you'll notice their signs are up, and Toll Brothers has their model under construction. Dreamfinders is supposed to start their model very soon. Models, I think. And so there's certainly a place for them, but it wasn't in the custom part of it. And, so the one thing we like to do is in our communities is control the ARB and control what goes in there. So when you go back and talk about the business model where just any builder can come in or something, that's not always a good thing. So so we like to tell the people up front, the buyers up front, that there will be architectural control, and the way we do that is to limit the builders to people who have agreed to conform to our architectural guidelines.
And it's been a successful model because you have a total of how many communities, mostly throughout the Southeast?
161, I think, we're at now. So, yeah, it's worked pretty well.
And they're all following essentially the same business model? Or for the last dozen years or so, we have been. There certainly have been developments we've done, say, in rural areas around a big lake or something like that, where there just wasn't the pool of builders,
resort style development,
Right.
like in mountain lakes and things like that. So you can't really do that in that area. But in this market, you want to be sure that the builders you have in there share your vision, and that's why we changed it.
And it's a unique property because it. I think you mentioned it's the last intercoastal frontage property on the east coast of Florida, really.
I hope someone can prove me wrong on that because I'd like to take a shot at buying it. but yeah, I think it is the last piece of any size for sure that was left. And we bought Palm Coast Plantation. It had 2 miles of waterfront, and that was quite the find when we found it. But then this property had 1 mile of waterfront, and I don't know of anything that exists, and we have people looking all the time. We have an entire division of our company that is seeking out new development opportunities, and they can't find anything with any sizable waterfront.
No, it's a beautiful location, as is Palm Coast Plantation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I've noticed. Well, we track the 250,000 and under market because that's a segment, an important segment. But the $1 million plus market too. 5 years ago, you'd be hard pressed to find $1 million home that was west of the Intercoastal Waterway. And now the $1 million homes are migrating across the river, so to speak. Palm Coast Plantation now has several $1 million sales. So does Grand Haven, Sanctuary.
And now they'll have $1 million plus new construction.
Even the conservatory, which isn't even on the water.
Right.
Yeah. Well, not everybody wants to be on the beach. The beach is a great place to go, but not everybody wants to live there. There are certainly good lifestyle off the beach too.
Yeah, I at one point had a home in Wild Dunes, which was off the coast in Charleston, just north of Charleston. I was 6 houses back from the beach, and the dollars then were different. I remember saying to my wife at the time, I said, "Look at those people. They're walking down to the beach." And there's a lot of vacation people that came there, a lot of rentals and condos. And I said, "They're probably paying $1,000 a week to be able to be this close to the beach." And then I said, "Wait a minute, so are we." And those were $1985.
Did you keep that house?
No, it's worth over $1 million now.
Yeah.
No, that got tangled up in a divorce.
Yeah. There are plenty of opportunities here, though. You asked a minute ago about my outlook on the market. I'm very optimistic. I think we're still going to go quite a bit higher.
Well, I wrote an article probably a year ago or more that Florida's the new California.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about California in the 60s and 70s when it was still beautiful and pretty much unspoiled, and everybody dreamed of moving there.
Yeah.
And I think Florida, for a lot of the reasons people are moving to Florida, not just Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and other states that are benefiting as well, but they're long-term conditions that I don't see changing anytime soon that are driving people to these states.
And if you want to compare us to California, I know that for the last 50 years, probably, people have said there's no way that California real estate can go up every single year. And guess what? It does.
It does. And
it continues.
I think Florida has. I mean, we'll have our little dips and valleys. I don't foresee in my lifetime, and it's pretty safe for me to make projections about my lifetime now because they're pretty short-term projections. But I don't see any of those factors changing. I think we're going to have, and I don't see a repeat of 2006, 2007 again either. I think we're back in a housing slump is maybe at most a 10% drop.
Well, like Ken was saying before, we don't have the economic factors in terms of the borrowing that was very haughtily given out, and we also don't have the boom that we had previously during that time, or previous to the 2008. We had so much building going on, and despite what some of our keyboard warriors might say of we're building so much, we're actually not.
Yeah, we're not.
And I actually just put a new graphic up on that Fair Fees webpage that I just mentioned earlier that really shows it very clearly that we are so far off from those pre-2008 numbers.
Well, we've run out of time.
Again,
we always run out of time before we run out of notes. Ken, it was great to have you here. Is there any, got a few seconds, is there any final thoughts?
I'd just like to wish you a happy birthday and congratulations on 11 great years, and also to wish our great country, the United States of America, a birthday tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We're closing in on 250 years next year.
Very special, and here's to a robust housing market.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. I'm Toby Tobin, and I approve this show. Come back next week, folks.